I always had this picture of crocodilians,
Yeah.
right? Kind of low, wide head, wading in the water. Basically all variations on that ambush theme.
Yeah, that's the classic image.
But then you look at the fossil record in Australasia, and this group, the Meccosuchia, well, it just completely throws that idea out the window.
Oh, absolutely. They're an incredible story of evolution. Meccosuchia were basically the crocs across Australasia for something like 50 million years, right from the Eocene up until pretty recently, geologically speaking.
Around 50 million years.
Yeah, and our goal here is really to unpack just how incredibly diverse they were. I mean, size, shape, lifestyle, everything. We're talking tiny dwarfs, huge 5-meter giants, and maybe even crocodiles that hunted on land.
Okay, let's start with the size range because that sounds pretty dramatic.
It really is. You've got the massive ones like Polluterex that called it the Swamp King.
Yeah.
Probably hit 5 meters, maybe 16 feet long.
Huge.
And then big, tough ambush hunters like Baru, about 4 meters, but with this incredibly robust sort of cleaver-shaped head, real bruisers.
Like you mentioned dwarfs too.
Right, exactly. Contrast that with something like Meccosuchia. We're talking maybe 70 to 90 centimeters long, tiny little guys.
That's incredible variation.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just size, was it? You mentioned different shapes.
That's where it gets really fascinating, especially with a genus called Quincana. This one had what we call an altirostral skull. It means deep, tall snout, not flat like modern crocs. Gives it a lot of bite leverage.
Okay.
And the teeth, they weren't the usual conical pegs for grabbing fish. Quincana had these blade-like serrated teeth. It's called xiphodont dentition. Think built-in steak knives.
Serrated teeth on a croc. That's wow. So what does that imply?
Well, that deep skull and those slicing teeth, it led researchers to think Quincana might have been mainly terrestrial. Chasing prey on land.
Like a Komodo dragon or maybe those extinct South American land crocs.
Exactly, that kind of idea, filling a large land predator niche. But there's a bit of a catch.
Oh, okay. What's the catch?
It's mostly based on the skull and teeth. We don't have a definite, complete skeleton for Quincana. There are some specialized hip bones found at Riversleigh, suggesting maybe a more upright stance needed for running, supporting that cursorial idea. But it's still debated because the evidence is patchy.
So a running land croc is possible,
Yeah.
but not totally confirmed. Interesting.
Right. And even the more standard semi-aquatic ones, like Canberra from way back in the Eocene, had features like straighter upper arm bones, the humerus.
What would that help with?
It would make doing the high walk, where they lift their belly right off the ground, much easier than it is for modern crocs. So the potential for moving well on land seems to have been there early on in the group.
It's amazing how you piece together these lifestyles from, fragments of bone over millions of years. It must be incredibly complex data to manage.
It definitely is. Trying to make sense of that vast, often incomplete data set, figuring out how these different adaptations fit together over such a long time, that requires some serious organization and analysis.
Yeah, that makes sense. And actually, that complexity ties in nicely because this deep dive is sponsored by Embersilk.
Ah, right.
They're experts in AI training, automation, integration, and software development. So if you're trying to figure out how AI agents could really boost your business or even help with personal projects, Embersilk can help uncover where they'd make the biggest impact.
Definitely relevant when you're dealing with complex information like ancient ecosystems.
Exactly. You can check them out at embersilk.com for any AI needs. Okay, so back to the Meccosuchians. They dominated for so long. What happened to them on the mainland? Was it humans?
Surprisingly, no, not primarily. The main culprit for the mainland extinction seems to have been major climate change.
Okay, what kind of change?
Starting in the Pleistocene, maybe around 50,000 years ago, Australia got much, much drier. Severe aridification, those inland freshwater systems just dried up.
And even a land-adapted croc would need water.
Right. Absolutely. They still needed access to fresh water, probably for breeding, drinking, basic survival. When those habitats disappeared, it hit them hard. Wiped out most of them on the continent.
But not all of them. Some survived.
Yes, on islands. This is another fascinating chapter. Certain types, like Meccosuchia and Volia, hung on in places like Fiji, New Caledonia, Vanuatu, well into the Holocene, maybe as recently as 3,000 years ago.
Wow, so they found refuge. Did they change much on the islands?
They did. They adapted. Meccosuchus inexpectatus, for example, developed these really robust, kind of blunt, rounded teeth at the back of its jaw.
Different from Quincana's steak knives.
Completely different. Suggests they shifted their diet, maybe crushing hard-shelled stuff like crabs or snails, a totally specialized island lifestyle, perhaps even foraging at night.
But even those island survivors eventually disappeared. What happened there? Was that humans?
While the timing is suspicious, their final extinction does seem to line up pretty closely with the arrival of the Lapita people on those islands. But direct proof, like finding lots of butchered Meccosuchus bones in archaeological sites, is still debated. So human impact is a strong possibility, maybe the final push, but the evidence isn't completely conclusive.
Right. What a story, though.
It really is. You've got this unique group of crocs ruling a continent for 50 million years, evolving these incredible, sometimes bizarre forms, and then ultimately facing extinction mainly due to massive environmental shifts.
It leaves you thinking, doesn't it? If those huge 5-meter mainland ones like Plutorex had somehow made it through the drying period, or maybe if the island specialist had survived, which would have been better equipped to deal with humans arriving, size versus specialization.
That's a great question to ponder. We'll likely never know for sure.
Well, if you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of extinct crocs, please do subscribe to the show. And hey, if you have a moment, leave us a 5-star review. It honestly does help get the word out. Thanks so much for tuning in.